not a beautiful Massachusetts day. It's not 104 degrees. There's no thunderstorms. Just spectacular. I don't know. Jim told me he saw a bald eagle flying over Route 2 on his way. There was a peregrine falcon perched on the old water tank. There were some vultures flying over. This is what a vibrant, beautiful area. And here we are in Montague, just a phenomenal engine of economic growth and Massachusetts culture. It's just phenomenal. So great to be here, and great to be here with so many different leaders and people who are working so hard to take things that have been a problem and turn them into beautiful things. And that's what this is all about today. I would like to just start by having our welcome from Town of Montague Administrator Walter Ramsey.
Hi everyone. Welcome to Turner's Falls in the Town of Montague. We're pleased to host each of you. So Turner's Falls is a handful of planned mill towns in New England. The Turner's Falls Canal District that's behind me, it's comprised of 6 former mill sites along 16 acres right along the Connecticut River. The river powered these mills for centuries, and now they power the largest hydro plant in Massachusetts. The Town of Montague, with support from Mass Development, has developed a vision for how to redevelop this area into recreation, some ability for renewable energy generation, light manufacturing in some of the old mills that are going to remain, as well as housing developments in the southern portion of the district. It's a very exciting vision that's supported by the community. And after 50 years of decline and disinvestment within these mills, the last operating mill finally closed its doors in 2018, leaving every property within this canal district vacant and having 0 employees where there was once hundreds. However, Turner's Falls is a resilient village, and the Town of Montague is a resilient town, and we've redefined ourselves as a walkable hub for culture and recreation here in the Connecticut River Valley. Massive public and private investment are planned. This is a huge part of that, but the Mass DOT is also proposing to redo all the bridges in the Canal District as well. And First Light, the private power company that holds the hydro assets, they're getting a FERC relicense, and that's going to add more water into the river. That's going to allow for recreational use of the river down below the falls where there never has been for the public before. So this is a novel opportunity for the town to expand tourism, recreation, and economic development. So the goal is to have Blight make way for riverfront access as a pathway for our revitalization of this district. So the north end of the district, right behind me, consists of 2 municipally owned properties, 8 and 20 Canal Road, totaling 4 acres. These were the locations of prominent cutlery and paper manufacturers, but the properties have been unused for decades. The planned work consists of demoing this large mill that's behind me, about 200,000 square feet of it, to stabilize the hydroelectric plant that is within the mill, and to transform this area into a 4-acre municipal riverfront park that connects the bike path that's right below us here and the Great Falls Discovery, the grounds that we're on right now. So Turner's Falls is one of the most economically disadvantaged census tracts in all of Franklin County, which is one of the most rural areas of the state. There are over 200 units of deed-restricted affordable housing within a stone's throw of this site. Blighted vacant properties, especially the Strathmore Mill that's behind me, have invited disinvestment. They serve as an attractive nuisance in the heart of our downtown. There have already been 2 catastrophic fires in the district in the past 15 years. Actively collapsing buildings pose an environmental and safety threat to collapse into the Connecticut River and damage the active power canal. The project is going to directly benefit an environmental justice community that's seeing an increased demand for passive and active outdoor recreation. So as I see you all here, I'm reminded that it really takes a constellation of local, state, and federal partnerships to make big things happen in a small town. The very grounds that we stand on, the Great Falls Discovery Center, is living proof of that. This property was acquired by the town and cleaned up and built out with federal funds and is now occupied by the Department of Conservation and Recreation as a heritage park. And I'm grateful of this partnership that we have all together of us for the next chapter in Turner's Falls' post-industrial journey. So as we depart today, the real work's going to begin for us here at the town, and I have a great team here in Montague that stands ready to deliver a successful project. The town is so grateful to the EPA and DCR and our state partners, and the many collaborators who have got us to this point. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank several key people specifically for helping make this happen. Kristen Aleko, say hi, Kristen. Kristen's the Western Mass Director of the Office of the Governor. She took us under her wing as a priority project and pushed in a small way in a way that a small town never could. So thank you, Kristen. A special thank you to Mass Development. Ben Murphy's here from Mass Development for their. They provided early support to conduct the master plan for the district that helped set the town up for success and help us bring in funds to see that vision happen. A thank you to Senator Joe Comerford and Representative Natalie Blais, who you'll hear from later. Our local delegation they're tireless advocates for our cause, and we're lucky to have them in our corner. I would like to thank Jessica Atwood. She's the planning director from FERCOG. Jessica's been side by side with the town, positioning, advocating, and posturing for this project for over 15 years. So a lot of hard work she's been put into this. And Jim Byrne from EPA Region 1 Brownfields Coordinator. So Jim has been a true gift to the town of Montague and the Franklin County region. He's a federal official who really gets his boots on the ground and really cares about small towns. He's helped assess and remediate at least 5 brownfields properties within probably 1,000 feet of this site. And he's always followed through for the town, so thank you, Jim. And lastly, I'd like to say my predecessor and mentor, Steve Ellis, the former town administrator who retired just 3 weeks ago. He was the catalyst to bring all these parties here today, and he deserves so much of the credit. And Steve wanted to at least come thank you personally, because he's the reason why we're all here.
Hi, everybody. This is fabulous. Thank you so much, Walter. I just want to say that, this is a profound and emotional moment for the town of Montague and really for Franklin County. When we think about this project, this is how we shape and move the world around us. It's through incredible, robust partnerships, and Walter acknowledged everyone, but not everyone, who was a part of that. And the town of Montague has an incredible team that is going to implement this project. I can't wait to watch it move forward. And, as I think about this, and I was so glad to see David here, it's very easy to lose sight of the fact that we stand here at the confluence of our industrial and our indigenous histories, and we have an opportunity to really do something beautiful that is honoring both of those elements of our history. So thank you all so much, and thank you, Walter, for giving me just one moment to say, well done, Montague. Well done, congressional delegation. Well done, state representative, state Blais, and the governor's office, and Joe Comerford, and FERCOG, and the EPA. We are deeply grateful.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Great to have the former and the current town administrators. Thank you so much for having us here today. As you see, standing behind me, we're going to hear from leaders who have helped bring this to fruition. You'll hear, of course, in a moment from Senator Ed Markey, from Commissioner Bonnie Heupel from the state's Department of Environmental Protection, the Nulambika Project Chair David Brule, and State Rep Natalie Blais. First, I just wanted to give a couple of opening remarks as well. As I had said earlier, I'm David Cash, the Regional Administrator of EPA New England. That covers the 6 New England states and 10 federally recognized tribes in New England. And before I begin, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge, as Steve just did too, that the land we're standing on has been stewarded for many, many, many generations of Native people long before the arrival of colonists, and we honor their enduring connection to this land with gratitude and humility. And that's something that I'm deeply aware of, regardless of where I am in New England. I also want to just extend gratitude to Senators Markey, Senator Warren, and Representative McGovern for their unwavering support and being champions of the bipartisan infrastructure law and so much else about EPA's mission, environmental protection, and economic development. And of course, as I mentioned, thank you to Commissioner Heupel for joining us again today. It's always fantastic to have our state partners here as well. I also want to start by honoring the late State Representative Stephen Kulik. He's someone who I worked with. I was in state government for 10 years. He's someone who I worked with quite a bit from the governor when I was in the governor's office. And of course, he had worked alongside town manager Steve Ellis and was responsible for a $5 million piece of the 2018 environmental bond bill that went to cleaning up Strathmore Mill. So just so important to think of his legacy and the foundations that we are all working on. Of course, I always love to thank EPA staff. So if you work for the EPA, just raise your hand and get the loud applause that you all deserve. Just fantastic. The different skills and expertises that are needed to address something like we're doing and seize opportunities. Our team has all of them, and it's a real honor to be working alongside them for me. I think, as you know, New England was the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution in North America. Facilities like the one behind that once drove economic development, industry, job creation in Montague and all over the surrounding communities here are now deteriorating buildings that have a legacy of pollution now. And when you think of brownfields, you think of blight, you think of costs, you think of risks. And there's a lot to be skeptical about, given those descriptors. But this program, the brownfield programs at the federal level and the state level, job is to turn blight into might, exemplifying that environmental protection and economic development are not mutually exclusive. They go hand in hand. And so the potential for brownfield sites like this one is huge. It makes one of my favorite events to host all around the region because we are in New England. We see sites like this all over New England. And since the beginning of the Brownfields program, Massachusetts has been awarded about $200 million to address these kind of things. And more of half of the funds that are coming here now are coming from the bipartisan infrastructure law. Again, thank you, Senator Markey, for your leadership on that. It's something that President Biden is incredibly proud about, that all of this funds are going to communities all over the country. And with the infusion of the new bipartisan infrastructure law funding, we could go from what it would have been about a $500,000 investment to a $5 million investment. And why that's so exciting is because, yeah, $500,000 to $5 million, yeah, you add a zero, but what does that mean? It's the difference between being able to assess the environmental contaminants and clean up one plot of land and being able to clean up, demolish where necessary, leverage additional funds to revitalize a whole industrial complex like the mill behind us. So huge opportunity that we have now, and this is built on the $5 million earmark from the Department of Conservation and Recreation. Again, another partner state agency. And this funding will be spent to remediate the hazardous building materials and the resources required to demolish the building. In addition, as I'm sure you'll hear, MassDEP will also receive $2 million community-wide assessment grant from EPA's pot of new $35 million that came in this year's bipartisan infrastructure law. And again, we'll best be able to partner with DEP, with the town, with other state agencies. And that funding is hugely important. It's not just going to clean up this, but it will create thousands of jobs. In fact, that $200 million that I mentioned sparked $1.5 billion of investments, creating over 7,000 jobs. That's huge. So when you hear about like environment versus economy, first of all, you should not believe that those two things oppose one another, but they support each other. And what we have here is not just a win-win situation. What we have with brownfields in this spot is a win-win-win-win-win-win. I was counting 7 on my fingers while I was speaking. And let me just, I'm going to, try to, I know that, everybody's hot and everything, but we're just going to do a little audience participation here. I'm going to talk about a win, and I want to hear the audience, respond by saying, win. So, for example, the Brownfields program cleans up polluted sites. Win. Create new spaces for industrial, residential, commercial, or open space. Win. We remove public safety hazards. We create local jobs. We expand the local tax base. We catalyze investment in communities. And overall, we are taking a bad and turning it into a good. Absolutely. This is the kind of environmental protection and economic development that investing in America is all about. And thanks to the decades of hard work, assessment, cooperation across all levels of government, as was already said, the bipartisan infrastructure law, Massachusetts state government, federal government, we are moving the Strathmore Mills into a new era that the residents of Montague will surely be proud of as it becomes an engine of better cultural and economic development and growth. And that is the power of investing in America. And if there's anybody in Congress who knows about investing in America and knows how environmental protection and economic development go hand in hand, it's Senator Markey, who has been a champion for that kind of environmental protection. Senator Markey?
Thank you, David. Thanks to all of you who are here. Thank you, David, for all your leadership. Thank you to the EPA staff for all of their great planning. They had an excellent plan for today. They put the podium out in the sun for us, and they're all under the tree. They could have flipped it, but no, they had a good plan, environmentally sound for themselves, and we're all wondering how long each of our speeches has to go at this point, now that we're out here. To the great Natalie Blais, thank you for all of your great historic work. To Walter Ramsey, Bonnie Heupel, thank you, and thanks to Governor for all of her great work. David Brule, Steve Ellis, Richard Kukowitz, Matt Lord, all of the incredible people who work on all of these issues. So it's a great day to join you all to celebrate this incredible brownfield grant funding for the removal and remediation of the Strathmore Mill. And again, all of the great people who are here who worked on it deserve all the credit in the world, because it has been a fight to deliver needed funding for our towns to keep them clean and healthy. So back in 1994, I was a senior member in the House of Representatives of the Environment Committee, and we created a program called Brownfields. So I was one of the senior people at that time creating a brownfields program for the country, for the EPA. And it was communities like this, and Lawrence, where my father grew up, where the mills were along the Merrimack River, or Malden, where I grew up, which was using the Malden River to dump all of these dangerous chemicals into the water and then leave it for subsequent generations. And then in 2022, as a senior member of the Environment Committee in the United States Senate, I then worked to make sure that we would have a massive amount of new funding for an expanded brownfields program. I had come here to Montague in 2020, walked through this beautiful community, saw this river, but also saw the Strathmore and what had happened. And so in my mind, on the committee, as I was working to build in the funding for a vastly expanded brownfields program, it was Montague that I was thinking about. It was communities like Montague that really stood out, because they know what the problem is. And in their minds, they actually have a plan to do something about it. But as we all know, for Montague, a vision without funding is an hallucination. You need the funding. You need the money. That's the key, the money. We have all the talented people who can do the planning and figure out how to do the remediation. But you need to pay them. You need to pay the contractors. You need to be able to move on. So that's what we're celebrating here today. We're celebrating that legislation in 2022 that created a massive amount of funding that now has led to $5 million coming to Montague. And so I'm very happy about that. That's what I had in mind in the committee as we were working. It was Montague. That was a headline. And the additional $2 million, which David Cash just announced, that's going to the state for more planning, was also part of what I was trying to do with a few other people to make sure that we would be funding the EPA, funding all of their efforts. Because of Richard Nixon, very briefly, they elected children to the United States Congress. So this is my 48th year as a member of the United States Congress. And I started in Congress 6 years after the EPA was created. So it's been a long struggle sitting on that committee to create the Superfund program, to create the Brownfields program, to create programs that would give the EPA the funding and the capacity to be able to do this work. And then talented people then are able to take that funding and do the job for Montague. So today marks the beginning of a new chapter for Montague, so it's only fitting to rework the prologue of Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet to fit the occasion. In fair Montague, where we lay our scene, from ancient mill buildings where PCBs make the land unclean, we are now going to change that story, because toxic brownfield sites abandoned or underutilized can make it harder for community residents to make their hometown dreams come true. When we invest in these historic but contaminated sites, as we are doing here at the Strathmore Mill, rather than ignore them, we not only revive a space for residents to work and to live and to play, but can also revitalize the local economy. Rather than running out the clock and waiting for the old paper mill complex to collapse into the Connecticut River, the $4.9 million cleanup grant, made possible thanks to funds from the bipartisan infrastructure law, will help write a new chapter for both Montague residents and the environment of the entire Connecticut River Valley. The Strathmore Mill was one of the first mills in Turner Falls and is a key part of the region's history. But after a century of industrial pollution, including PCBs, heavy metals, petroleum, and other no-good contaminants, the 1.3-acre riverfront site will be transformed from a community eyesore to a community asset, finally, and once and for all. The planned community green space that will be built as a part of this remediation project could not have come at a better time. More than 200 units of affordable housing are right around the corner, which means more than 200 households will be able to enjoy the riverfront and new green spaces, which can be a literal lifesaver during times of extreme heat like we have seen this summer. The Brownfield Cleanup Grant is reinvesting in 18 towns across the Commonwealth to the tune of nearly $35 million federal dollars, which then flow right here into Montague and communities across the Commonwealth. And I'm proud to have fought for these federal funds in the bipartisan law that are going to buoy up and build out new opportunities in rural communities here in Western Massachusetts and all across the country. And ultimately, we just have to ultimately view Montague as an environmental justice community as well. All of those industrial barons from long ago just left behind the residue of their attempts to make themselves enormously wealthy. But when Montague had been used up from their economic perspectives, they just walked away. And today, what we say to the people of Montague, that we are going to create a brighter, cleaner, safer future for them and for their families, using this federal money, the $5 million partnered with the state money, in order to make sure that we look at that past in a rearview mirror. And for children in Montague, they will have to look to the history books to find that there ever was such a day that industrialists were allowed to use the Connecticut River as a dumping ground for PCBs, for other dangerous contaminants. And so we have this incredible opportunity. It means that we are going to get the clean water that Bay Staters deserve, and it means nearly $35 million is going to be put into cleaning up vacant mills like this one in Montague, dumping grounds, abandoned factories, electrical plants, and we're just getting started. We're creating new public parks, building new affordable housing and community centers, and spurring new economic development with commercial space. And because we know that remediating polluted sites breathes life back into a neighborhood, life that is good for the environment, good for the community, good for business. And I can't wait to come back here again to Montague after the cleanup to see how the Strathmore Mill will support the next generation of Montague residents in a whole new way. So today is the dawn of a new era. It is a Shakespearean end to a community that will actually spring to life at the end of this story, and be able to give hope to all of the families that are here, and I think draw many more to live here in Montague for the rest of their lives. So congratulations, Montague. It's a great new day.
Oh my goodness. Senator, climate justice warrior, champion for the working family, and now bard, Markey. As has been mentioned numerous times, partnerships are so critical to make these kinds of investments happen and bring to the communities what they deserve. And of course, our state partners have been phenomenal. The head of the Department of Environmental Protection, Commissioner Bonnie Heupel, is here as well. Bonnie?
Good morning. I'm proud to be here on behalf of the Healy-Driscoll administration to celebrate the critical nexus between environmental protection and economic development. Joining me here from our terrific Mass DEP team are our Regional Director, Mike Gorski, our statewide Brownfields Coordinator, David Foss, Capri Shaw, our Regional Brownfields Coordinator, and Abby Anderson, our Brownfield Environmental Justice Coordinator. These are the people who make this happen for Mass DEP. The Biden-Harris administration and the bipartisan infrastructure law are providing transformative investment in the environment. Water and sewer projects, green energy infrastructure, and of course, why we're all here today, brownfields redevelopment. Have to thank Senator Markey, who has been such a tireless champion, the Massachusetts congressional delegation, for advocating for Massachusetts and the important role that we as a state play in those key federal and local objectives. Administrator Cash, thanks to you and all of the EPA team for the annual funding from EPA that helps run Mass DEP's brownfields and waste site cleanup programs, which we're proud to consider one of the strongest in the country. We are grateful that EPA's 2024 brownfields funding to Massachusetts communities increased by roughly 250% this year. We recognize this is a huge investment, and we're prepared to put those dollars to work. There are certainly many proud parts of America's industrial revolution, but as many have noted, it has left us with sites across our state that are contaminated, soil and groundwater, causing issues for their communities, issues for communities even past our state lines. A disproportionate number of these issues are occurring in environmental justice areas and historically overburdened cities and towns. Brownfields assessment, cleanup, and redevelopment has a transformative benefit for those communities. And of course, as the Senator rightly pointed out, none of this is possible without funding. Building on all of the terrific federal support that we've received year over year, this year the new investment of $2 million in additional funding to Mass DEP will help us support community-wide assessments. This extra resource really positions us to support a greater range of brownfields assessment and redevelopment planning than ever before. And of course, bringing it home, the award of close to $5 million to the village of Turner Falls here in Montague. This is a tremendous investment in the future of this community and one that we know will be truly impactful. I'm also happy to report that the Haley Driscoll administration and my colleagues at the Department of Conservation and Recreation have awarded $5 million to Montague to pair with those federal dollars. Demolishing and restoring the former Strathmore Mill complex is truly a team effort, as the town manager rightly pointed out. This includes town, state, and federal entities, but I'd be remiss if I didn't highlight the key role that our partners in regional planning play in all of this. Regional planning agencies are the missing link in many of these scenarios. Without folks like the Franklin Regional Council of Governments, Jessica Atwood in particular, who runs their Brownfields program, none of this would be possible. Our regional planners partner with communities and drive progress to turn these contaminated, often abandoned sites into economic drivers. Once these sites are cleaned up, redevelopment creates jobs, it generates tax revenue, housing, recreational spaces we know is planned right across from us, and it can incubate new businesses. These are benefits that extend far beyond individual property lines. Indeed, brownfields redevelopment has been an economic catalyst in hundreds of cities and towns across Massachusetts. Just as importantly, these projects have restored the environment and protected and preserved green spaces that may have been threatened otherwise. These are the types of partnerships that really work. So again, I thank the EPA, our congressional delegation, state rep, and our regional and local partners for their work and collaboration. We're ready to put this important funding to work to create action and opportunities for our communities for economic development and make our towns and cities healthier, safer, and more vibrant places to live. Thank you all.
Thank you, Commissioner. And continuing the theme of partnerships and many parts of government that step up to make something like this happen, we're fortunate to have State Representative Natalie Blais here today, also a leader in providing the kinds of votes that bring environmental protection and economic development to this part of Massachusetts.
Just yesterday. Good morning, everybody. It is wonderful to be with you here today. And I want to thank Senator Markey for your leadership at the federal level, to the EPA, and to the Haley Driscoll administration for your commitment to the town of Montague. And certainly to the town for your efforts. This is really an extraordinary day. I would be remiss if I did not mention my predecessor, Steve Kulik, who did secure these $5 million at the state level for the Strathmore. He was a tremendous public servant, and I am very lucky to have followed in his shoes. I also just want to mention Congressman John Olver, who secured the funding to be able to construct the canal side rail trail, which people are currently using for walking and biking behind us. It will certainly be a critical part of this project and what we will see in the future in terms of expanded outdoor recreational activities. This is a historic investment that will transform downtown Turners Falls. And it didn't come easy. I just have to take a minute to recognize the heartbreaking work that went into making today possible. I was talking with Mike Gorski and Kristen Ellico right before we started here, and we were talking about how just 1 year ago today, none of us imagined that we would see this funding here in Western Massachusetts, and here we are. It is a tremendous investment in this community. It is a direct result of the collaboration and the partnership of local, state, and federal government. And I've been working in government here since 2005 when I worked for Congressman Olver. I have to say, this is one of the most impressive partnerships that I have seen, and it is a direct result of everyone here who worked together. There were countless Zoom calls. There were countless phone calls. There were endless support letters. And as Kristen said, this is a very emotional day for us because so many of us gave so much of our hearts and our souls and our minds to ensure that this building, this complex behind us, will not crumble into the Connecticut River. As Senator Markey said, this resource behind us was in jeopardy should this facility crumble into the river, and we heard that often from Steve. And the call to action was heard by all of us. And thankfully, we have a community here that dreams big, really, really big, but doesn't only dream big, they make it happen. They turn it into reality. And for that reason and so many more, I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be here today. Senator Comerford is in Boston, in session. She sends her congratulations and best wishes. So congratulations to the town of Montague. I'm thrilled for you and cannot wait to see the next stage in this process.
Thank you, Representative. Of course, it's not just state and local and federal government that makes these things. It's the voices of the communities that we're in. And as I noted, there's a long history here. There's a long post-colonial history here that's filled with both tragedy and with reconciliation, but there's obviously a much, much longer thousands year history of Native peoples living here, stewarding the land and animals and water. And we are lucky today to have David Brule, Nolambika Project Chair, who works to make sure that the Connecticut River Valley is centered on issues of indigenous culture, knowledge, environmental protection, and would love to hear, David, your thoughts today. Thank you.
So good morning. Let me know if my voice is reaching you all right. I have a thing with microphones. Sometimes I can't be heard, but I'm really both honored and humbled by being asked to say a few words, and I'll keep it brief. I'm proud because I'm a native son of this place. I was born and raised about a mile away, and that gives me a certain perspective. I also have this perspective of once I graduated from high school in the 60s, I got out of town as soon as I could because nothing was going on here, and certainly not for an 18-year-old or a 17-year-old. I didn't stay away long. I came back within 10 years and settled in my great-grandparents' house. And when I think of what Steve had to say and what David had to say about this being indigenous land, it's really important to evoke that kind of history. Native people don't necessarily see history as a linear sequence of events, but it's very cyclical. What goes around comes back, it loops, sometimes reverses itself. I personally feel attached to that concept. My own grandparents came to this village during the Depression. They came from the St. Lawrence River Valley, settled in Lowell, working in the factories over there, and then came to this town during the Depression, 1936, to work in the mills. So I have a real personal contact in that regard. My grandmother famously said, as they came across one of the remaining bridges, "Don't unpack your bags, we're not staying." And of course, here I am. We stayed. And I'm very pleased that has happened that way. So I had people from my immediate family working in these mills. And one of the things that occurred in my lifetime as a retired teacher was that we had an opportunity to join with the National Park Service to study what happened here at the Falls in 1676. So what we have here is literally a 10,000-year history of Native people living right here. When the old Grand Trunk Hotel was torn down, archaeology was done, and they found thousands of years of worth of artifacts right over in this lawn where the hotel was, which basically indicated that there had been a long, long, long history of native people living here. The ridge line that you see over here, this is called the Wissatinawag. In the days when native people lived there, it was called Wissatinawag because the hills were cleared back of vegetation. That is a basalt ridge line, and the mist from the falls drifted over onto those that basalt face and glistened, and so it became known as the Shining Hill, the Wissatinawag. Of course, after 10, 11,000 years of history there, a terrible event happened right here on May 19th, 1676, when there was a horrific attack by a Captain William Turner and 150 colonials who attacked a non-combatant refugee camp across the river. That basically brought to an end that 10, 11,000 year history of native people living here. The land was stewarded by the Pecumtuck Indians, who have scattered to the St. Lawrence River Valley and blended in with the Abenaki primarily. Some went to central Massachusetts to be assimilated by the Nipmuc. Others went farther west. So along came history in its cycle, and I had an opportunity to volunteer as the coordinator of this now in its 11th year study of what really happened at the falls. And I really have to thank Frank Abbandazio, the late Frank Abbandazio, and certainly Steve Ellis and now Walter Ramsey for all the support they provided, as well as the select board with Rich Kukulitz. So we are now in the 10th year of working on a groundbreaking collaboration between native tribes from Massachusetts and from Vermont to look into what happened here at the falls. So we've had literally 10 years of archaeology being done. So I guess what I'm saying is that I wound up coming back probably because this was where I was supposed to be these days. We have preserved the Wissatinawag site. It was slated to become a Walmart plaza. We fought that back and bought the land out from underneath Walmart with the help of the town meeting of Greenfield, the town voters in Greenfield. And now with the collaboration of Jessica Atwood at FERCOG and the Mass DEP and the EPA, we have begun assessing and making plans for removal of a brown field up there left behind by the construction company who dumped their demolition debris up that way. So a lot is happening. We are really pleased that, one, the building is not going to collapse into the Connecticut River. We are anticipating that the plan to create an open space, green space behind us here will become a park. It'll be facing the 10,000-year-old village site of Wissatinawag. It will be very approximate to the place where 400 people lost their lives that day on May 19th. And this is an incredible project that is going to benefit all of us, but certainly the native people who have stayed under the radar for a long time. There have been attempts to erase the native people. There have been an attempt to write them out of history books. And now, these days, we are having an incredible renewal as testimony to our persistence here in this place in Massachusetts as well, but specifically in this one historical, spiritual spot. I tell, when I go into schools to talk to kids, I say this, as Senator Markey remarked, this is a very spiritual place. It's almost magical. And I tell kids, even the dinosaurs love this place. They left behind their trails and their tracks here for people to find. So this is a magical place. It is finding its, again, its existence as a spiritual site. And I'm really grateful, as you can tell, for all of the people, the efforts that people have made. So again, I want to thank you. I'll end with that. Aho. Thank you.
Thank you, David, for bringing us those final words. Really appreciate it. And just on a personal note, we just discovered as we were talking earlier that we both taught at Amherst Regional High School. He for decades, but me for a couple of years in the 90s. So I was so glad that we were on the same teaching team. So that brings to a close our event here today. Just as you hear, phenomenal day to celebrate investments that are being leveraged by communities to solve problems and to seize new opportunities, and that's what this is all about. I think we have some time for... Oh, please, Senator.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, question.